And I don't have a clue because it's about nothing. It's just something that happened before.
A legendary character in music, Bob Dylan is a poet, a rebel, and the voice of a generation. Join us as we reveal Dylan's rise and the Rolling Stones' reluctance to work together. His influence crosses generations and genres, inspiring countless artists to pick up a guitar or pen a verse. However, despite his legendary status, not all rock icons were eager to enter the studio with him. One such icon is Mick Jagger, the charismatic frontman of the Rolling Stones, who recently revealed why the rockers refused to work with Dylan. Was it fear or envy? By the middle of the 1960s, Dylan had evolved from a folk singer on the road to a cultural icon whose words pierced the fog of a chaotic time. He was born Robert Allen Zimmerman in Duluth, Minnesota, on May 24, 1941. Dylan was raised in a modest Jewish family and was a quiet child who found comfort in the radio's crackling blues and country broadcasts. However, when he picked up a guitar and started writing lyrics, something extraordinary happened. By the time he arrived in Greenwich Village, New York, in 1961, he was a sponge, soaking up the raw energy of the folk scene and channeling it into songs that would soon echo around the world. Dylan wasn't just a songwriter. At his peak, he was a prophet. Every artist wanted to collaborate with him, with the exception of the rockers. Why did they know something that no one else knew? Jagger would later reveal that Dylan was a combination of admiration, intimidation, and practical realities. Collaboration frequently meant compromise in the testosterone-fueled, ego-driven rock culture of the 1960s and 1970s. But Dylan refused to compromise. His vision was unique, his workflow was disorganized, and his personality was too elusive to work with. Although Dylan's creative process was a maze, stories from his recording sessions paint a picture of a man who thrived on spontaneity. And as his star rose, so did the complexity of his persona, Mick. Jagger hinted that he was about to enter a whirlwind where control was an illusion. Jagger, the leader of the Rolling Stones, was a new kind of rock star. He was born in Dartford, England, on July 26, 1943, and was a restless soul with a keen mind and a sharper stage presence. The swagger and peril of rock and roll, which was founded in 1962 with Keith Richards, were personified by Jagger. Brian Jones and a rotating cast of players. The Stones were the gritty antidote to the Beatles' polished charm. Songs like I Can't Get No Satisfaction and Painted Black dripped with rebellion, and Jagger's prowling lip-curling performances made him a magnetic force. By the late 60s, the Stones were global icons, their music soundtrack to a generation pushing boundaries. Yet despite their shared era and mutual respect for Dylan's craft, Jagger and his peers kept their distance when it came to collaboration. The question lingered why Dylan's influence was undeniable. The Beatles credited him with pushing their songwriting deeper. Jimi Hendrix turned All Along the Watchtower into a volcanic masterpiece. Even the Byrds owed their folk rock sound to his blueprint. So why did rockers like Jagger shy away from joining him in the studio? Reports of Dylan's unstable approach to music scared the rockers, who were obsessed with organization. Dylan's style obviously didn't fit into what they wanted. Incidents like the 19651, where he shocked his band by going electric without giving them a heads up at the Newport Folk Festival, plugging in his guitar and unleashing a sound that fused folk storytelling with rock's raw power. The Dylan kind of music was cerebral, unpredictable, and untamed, something the rockers weren't willing to walk in. To many, he was a genius. To others, he was an enigma wrapped in a riddle, a man whose brilliance came with an edge that could alienate as much as it inspired. Take musicians like Al Kooper and Mike Bloomfield remember Dylan's arrival with half-finished lyrics, giving ambiguous instructions, and expecting the band to follow along as he improvised. The result was brilliant songs like Rolling Stone, which redefined what a rock song could be. But Dylan's approach was frustrating. He would say, "Play it like it's raining and you just have to figure it out." Highway 61 was revisited in 1965. Cooper once chuckled at a group like the Rolling Stones, whose cohesiveness depended on the close harmony between Richards' riffs and Jagger's singing. Dylan's methods could seem like a threat to their identity, and by the late 1960s, he had become more than just a musician, he was a myth. After surviving a near-fatal motorcycle accident in 1966, he withdrew to Woodstock with the band, emerging with the enigmatic Basement Tapes. Every action he took was closely watched, every word was analyzed, and working with him meant running the risk of being overshadowed, a prospect that didn't sit well with rock stars like Jagger, who had battled valiantly to establish their legends. Jagger acknowledged that, "We all loved Bob, but he had a way of making everything about him even when he didn't mean to." Beneath the fatigue, though, there was respect for Dylan's influence on Stone's songs like Street Fighting Man, which owed a debt to Dylan's knack for fusing poetry and protest, and Richards once referred to Dylan as the real deal. However, admiration didn't translate into partnership. Was the choice to steer clear personally, or was it about survival? The Stones had their kingdom, and Dylan had his. Crossing those borders, as Jagger would later reveal, was a gamble few were willing to take. Creative clashes by the 1970s. After withdrawing from the public glare after his 1966 motorcycle accident, Bob Dylan's mystique only deepened. He returned with a new style that was gritty, more introspective, and frequently shrouded in ambiguity. When Dylan reinvented himself, he remained a chameleon who defied expectations for Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, who are currently riding high on hits like Sticky Fingers and Exile on Main Saint. However, albums like John Wesley Harding and Nashville Skyline showed a softer side, trading electric fury for country-tinged ballads. They couldn't ignore Jagger's observations on why rockers avoided Dylan, which weren't the result of idle conjecture but rather were formed in the heat of actual encounters and made them want to know about his encounters. Dylan's unpredictable nature was a double-edged sword that attracted but also posed a risk. One such instance occurred in 1972, when the Stones were in New York following a successful U.S. tour. Dylan was then leading a more sedate existence. With a guitar in hand and prepared to play, Upstate made a rare appearance in the city, spreading the word that he stopped by a late-night jam session at a downtown club. Jagger was present, along with a few other rock legends, and what could have been a historic collaboration descended into a telling standoff. According to Jagger's later account, "He started playing something and we all just watched. Half the audience thought it was fantastic, but the other half was confused, saying, 'I didn't jump and didn't feel right.'" According to Jagger, that night wasn't about ego, rather, it was about rhythm. The Stones thrived on a groove and a close-knit teamwork that propelled their live performances to incredible heights. Despite working on a different wavelength, Dylan's lyrics wandered into mysterious tangents, his pace changed mid-song, and his band was supposed to follow him mindlessly when he had won. Dylan's reputation as a studio wildcard during the 1975 Blood on the Tracks recording was another factor in the rockers' reluctance to collaborate with him. Dylan's method perplexed even seasoned pros. He would change musicians without warning and rewrite lyrics on the fly using scrap takes that others thought were flawless. The album became a classic, but the chaos left collaborators shell-shocked by Jagger, who had witnessed the Stones' meticulous production on albums like Goat's Head Soup, saw this as a red flag. "We'd spend days getting a sound just so he noted that Bob could tear it all down in a minute. That's not how we worked." However, there were moments when the gap narrowed in 1985 when the music world buzzed with Live Aid, the worldwide concert led by Bob.